What did California pass? What ridiculous bill did they pass?
Well, it actually is even worse because it wasn't even a bill. It was a regulation from an unelected body called CARB.
Oh, nice.
And this is an anti-CARB effort, probably both in food and in regulation. And it wasn't just California, by the way, Mike. It was also the Biden administration's EPA. But essentially what California said is they said, look, we have the biggest economy, one of the biggest economies in the world. We have really significant ports. If you want to use our ports and you want to truck any good in the state of California, once this regulation goes into effect, you have to have a certain threshold of electric vehicle for your trucks, a heavy-duty truck. So just to put it in context, there are maybe 100 large semi-trucks that are run on batteries in the entire United States. There are maybe over 16 million in the diesel-powered trucks in the United States. And the Biden administration, EPA, would accomplish more or less the same thing. These are, at the end of the day, mandates.
So if you want to go to the port of Los Angeles and get a shipping container and leave, the fleet, so like that company's fleet has to have a certain number of electric trucks? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Nebraska is a good example. We ship our grain all around the world, and a lot of our product gets shipped. We are not, as you know, Mike, we don't have access. We are the opposite of Hawaii.
You're landlocked.
We're landlocked. There's no ocean. So we have to, in order to ship our product, especially to Asia, we have to go through California. And to do that, it's hard. The fleet has to be a certain size, but it's not very big. And in order for that fleet to operate in California, it has to have a certain percentage of EVs. And there's almost no EV trucks. Is the point? There's almost no EV trucks. There's almost no EV trucks. There's also no charging infrastructure in the entire state of Nebraska, and we have the largest stretch of I-80 in the country. There's not one. There's not one of these charging stations. And unlike EVs for car, people think you can plug, your car into the garage, into your garage outlet, or whatever else. Like a trucking charging station draws so much power; it's the equivalent of a small city. So this is not a small. It's not a small thing for anyone, not just Nebraskans.
But by the way, that's an interesting fact. You have the largest stretch of I-80. So you are wider than Iowa and Nevada?
Interesting. Well, I don't know if we're as a state. Well,
I-80 doesn't go to Nevada. I-80 splits. No, where's I-80 go? Does I-80 go? No, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you must be a little even wider than Nevada. Interesting. Sorry, back on task. So what percentage of the fleet has to be electric?
It depends on the year. So it starts at about 10%, and then it ratchets up over time. Now, some of the stuff can be a little misleading, Mike, because they might say, well, you don't have to be fully implemented until 2030 or 2032, and you might think, well, that's 6 or 7 years. But in the world of model years for cars, and certainly for tractor trailers, where this technology isn't even proven to be mass produced, we're not even sure we can get the minerals to mass produce these types of trucks at scale with the batteries. 7 years is really like a blink of an eye. This is an overnight transformation of our supply chain.
Okay, so how can you sue? Like you can say, I don't like that idea. That's a bad idea, but that's not what an attorney general does. So what's the law here that you're suing?
No, it's a great question. We have at least two arguments. The first is that California, by federal statute, doesn't have the authority to do what they're doing. So if there is a federal statute that says, hey, look, states, you cannot regulate tailpipe emissions, and that makes sense. You don't want Nebraska, you don't want California or Texas all coming up with different tailpipe emissions because we have transportation networks that go across the country. So you don't want to have different rules, just like you don't want to have different rules for railroad gauges or other things related to interstate transportation. So the federal government has said you can't do that. Now, California has the ability to ask for a waiver. They don't have that waiver. We think even if they got the waiver, it wouldn't apply. There's a world of difference between tailpipe emissions and mandating a specific type of technology. So that's argument one. But the other argument is a constitutional argument. This is a quintessential interstate regulation, which is mandating particular types of modes of transportation, just like the railroad gauge that I've referenced. And so we're saying, hey, look, under what a lot of people call the dormant commerce clause, the idea that states can't regulate interstate commerce because the federal government has the right to do that. California can't dictate national terms for states like Nebraska or any other state for that matter. So those are our two primary legal arguments.
we got about 90 seconds, but California will say, listen, you in Nebraska, you can do whatever you want. We're saying in California, you can't, you have to do
and
X.
that can work for a whole bunch of things, but it can't work when you're trying to regulate interstate commerce. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress that ability to do so. And the Supreme Court has said in lots of contexts similar to this, states just can't get into the business of regulating these types of modes of transportation. If California wants to incentivize, they can do that all day long. They want to give tax credits, they can do all that all day long. But what they can't do is say, you can't access our state and our markets unless you do a certain type of mode of transportation.
Okay. Yeah, that seems pretty clear. What's this timeline for this?
Well, we just filed the suit, and these things will take some time to go through the process. So, and you never know what's going to happen at the district court level, the appellate court level. So it might take sometimes months or maybe even years.
Okay. All right. Well, good for you guys leading the charge, Attorney General of Nebraska.